YouTube, we're talking college sports in the Deep South where college football is king, and on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast talking Auburn football, and now it is prediction time for the Auburn and Tulane Green Wave. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. War Eagle. Auburn coming off a very emotional, very pivotal win over Oregon. We cited this as a huge game for the Auburn Tigers for a lot of reasons. You know, one, if you want to have a very successful season, you got to start out with beating a quality opponent, and they found that in the Oregon Ducks, having to come back from a 21-6 deficit to go ahead with the last-second touchdown from Bo Nix to Seth Williams to solidify a 27-21 win over an Oregon team who will probably, just like Washington on last year, 2018, these guys have a very good chance of winning the Pac-12 conference. You know, I think this game against Tulane for Auburn is going to be huge because, for one, the fan perception of the Auburn Tigers, especially when playing against a team that is usually less talented, more so a quote-unquote menial opponent. A lot of times Auburn struggles with these teams. We think about Mercer back in 2017. We think about Jacksonville State back in 2015, you know, where Auburn struggled in these games. And even last year, where Auburn struggled against Southern Miss to find some type of offensive dominance and, you know, really had the fan base a little bit on edge and a little bit more so, for lack of a better way of putting it, just irritated. Because that's one of the things that has been a staple in the Gus Malzahn era is the fact that, yeah, you can win the big games, but some of the games that you should dominate, some of the teams that you should beat, a lot of times you just don't. And that just really irritates the Auburn fan base. So what I'm looking for is for Gus Malzahn in this particular game against Tulane to go ahead and stop that trend. Stop the trend of struggling against teams that are obviously less talented than you. Now, I do get it. The FIU Panthers were the second-rated team in the Conference USA. They went to the Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl and played against Toledo and won that game 35-32. Carried a lot of momentum into this season, but Tulane did a good job of taking care of them. But as I look at Tulane on video footage, although they had a very hefty win, when I look at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football, neither side is in a position to where they should compete on any level, period, with the Auburn Tigers. You talk about the Auburn Tigers that have accumulated depth from the 2016, 17, 18 class. And you also talk about the, Tulane Green Wave, who in the last few classes, as far as talent goes, at their best recruiting class was a 68 recruiting ranking. But when you look at these guys on average, a 90th ranked recruiting classes for the Tulane Green Wave. It's just hard to get guys to come to Tulane to play football because you have so many schools in Louisiana. You talk about LSU, you talk about Louisiana Lafayette, Louisiana Monroe, Louisiana Tech. Then you talk about, Texas A&M, which is right down the road. Then you talk about Mississippi State. Also that, kind of tap into any type of, talent that Tulane is able to recruit. And you wind up having a situation where Tulane is actually okay, but they're okay in spots. Of course, you got Darnell Mooney out of Gadsden, Alabama with 1,000 yards on last year. Also, you have the transfer quarterback, Justin McMillan, from LSU, who provides a certain level of talent for the Green Wave as well. I was, relatively impressed with Darius Bradwell at the running back position. Of course, Patrick Johnson is going to be very key for guys like Patrick Johnson and DeAndre Williams to really make an impact on the defensive side of the football field. Patrick Johnson plays that joker linebacker position, which is really similar to the buck linebacker position for Auburn, and he has tended to cause some disruption. But Auburn is, in my opinion, has the opportunity to be a different team. You know, they are much more physical at the offensive line, obviously more physical at the defensive line. But one thing that Auburn has to be concerned about is the fact that Tulane is going to try to run a little bit of tempo. You know, they don't run a lot of huddle. They like to get you off balance, and that's going to be a key for the Auburn Tigers to make sure that they keep their speed on defense at bay and not get caught out of position and not be put in positions to where, you know, drives that should be 3 and out, you get caught out of position and wind up giving up a lot of big plays to a Tulane team that has the opportunity to do so. But I just feel like, just based on little things that I saw in video footage, the offensive line for Tulane does not provide the physicality that's going to give a guy like Justin McMillan, who has the ability, has run pass option ability, to really have a serious impact in this particular football game. I think Gus Malzahn really made some strides as a head coach and as a quarterback's coach, so to speak, in the game against Oregon, where he never gave up on Bo Nix. He constantly coached him throughout the football game. So that showed some maturity on his coaching ability to guide a guy who was a true freshman playing against very high-level Power 5 football in the Pac-12 to really gain some confidence and to have the confidence in Bo Nix for him to throw the game-winning touchdown pass. You know, that pass has even garnished a lot of criticism, but nonetheless, having that confidence in your quarterback to continue through with him throughout that particular football game, never flinching, never putting Joey Gatewood in the game, and also with Boobie Whitlow really taking over that football game from a running back standpoint, and also setting the tone of what could be a very good running game for the Auburn Tigers. One thing that Auburn does need to look at is they need to start looking at some other options at running back. Not saying to bench Boobie Whitlow, but to provide some depth, because when I look at the stretch for the SEC, Boobie Whitlow is just not going to be able to do this on his own. Most teams in the SEC who are, on a high level, you talk about Georgia, you talk about LSU, you talk about Alabama, they have multiple guys who run the football. So what Auburn is looking for, obviously, is that second guy. Who is going to be that second guy, or that third guy, or that 1, 2, 3 guy who is going to really solidify Auburn's running game? Another thing that I would like to see is Bo Nix to get a little bit more active in the intermediate passing game. You know, you talk about Eli Stove, you talk about Will Hastings. There's a good chance that Anthony Schwartz will be back in the mix to really get an identity as to what the Auburn passing game can look like as well. So what I expect to see from Auburn is a very balanced attack, 60% running, 40% passing the football. Auburn needs to win this game. I think they're going to win it anyway, but it's going to be a matter of how they win the game. It needs to be a very balanced attack, and it needs to be something that can be transferable over to what Auburn will look like, say, against Texas A&M in a couple of weeks, because you're not going to be able to do it with just a base set. You're going to have to do it with a very balanced attack, and I think this game against Tulane gives Auburn the best opportunity to do so. It's prediction time, guys. When I think about Auburn, first game at home, a night game, the fans are asked to wear all white. This has nothing to do with my prediction, just wanted to throw that out there. But when I look at this particular team and their capabilities, and especially how they played in the second half, starting to get a little bit more confidence with Bo Nix, obviously starting to get more confidence with the defensive side of the football field, I think this is a game that if Auburn approaches it the right way, approaches it the more educated way, and with the intensity that they need to approach it with, I think this is one of the biggest games in Gus Malzahn's career as up to the present, because in recent times, in games like this, at times, he just did not have the team prepared, to really, really dominate a team like this. Even when I think about the Georgia Southern game in 2017, they made plays that just aren't transferable to what would work in a Power 5, SEC, Pac-12, Big 12 situation. But I think Gus Malzahn is learning that you have to do that in games like this. You have to go ahead and put teams like this away so that you can really have the opportunity to take advantage of what these types of games provide. You have a FBS team, pretty decent in Conference USA football, and you want to, pretty decent in American Conference football, and you want to give your young guys a chance to play, but you can't do that if you don't put them away. I'm expecting something like a 35-0 halftime on Auburn's way. It's prediction time. On Auburn's way to a very, very solid, finally, a very, very solid, game with Tulane, where they win this particular game 52-7. 52-3. Not only do they cover the spread, but they accomplish the things that they want to accomplish. So if you're betting on this game, Auburn covers the spread and they go over the 51 points allowed. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart for the podcast talking Auburn football like we love to do. Go ahead and like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.